Jim Jones, the Harlem legend and Dipset veteran, was discovered dead in the middle of a full-fledged narcotics investigation, detained and surrounded by flashing lights. It was unbelievable, but the police scanners and sirens were genuine. Were humming, and the grainy, undisputed video showed the rapper outside a dark warehouse in what police are claiming was a verified drug trade. Within minutes, social media went crazy, asking whether this was a sit-up in which he described what the devil is happening on the streets of. Hip-hop fans all over the world were trying to make sense of the rumors that were raging in Harlem, but nothing rocked the internet more than what happened next. Cam'ron, Jim Jones' longtime buddy, brother-in-arms, and co-founder of Dipset, went lie. His face said it all. The true drama started when he finally spoke because Cam'ron didn't defend him. He didn't deny it. He just said one thing. The quiet, the tightness in his eyes, the stiffness in his jaw, it wasn't just betrayal, it was heartbreak. You have no idea how much the internet froze, and there are still a lot of unanswered issues. Was this years in the making, or was this the last fracture in a fraternity based on loyalty? The whole narrative is worse than anyone could have anticipated, and the streets of Harlem felt colder beneath a bleak, cloudy sky. As the news spread like wildfire, most people initially didn't believe that Jim Jones, the Dipset legend who had climbed from the projects to international acclaim, had been detained in connection with a heroin sale. How could he be involved in something so sordid? Everyone anticipated the typical whispers and trivial online discussion, but this time there was no doubting it. Within minutes, grainy film appeared, and Jim Jones' inner circle silence only served to heighten the fervor. The clip was harsh and unvarnished, starting with a shaky handheld shot. Jim Jones was standing next to a sleek black sub in the parking lot behind a shuttered warehouse, his shadow defined by a single street lamp. The man he was meeting was wearing a dark hoodie, and his face was hidden, but the conversation was likely recorded by a nearby pedestrian or security guard's phone. It was evident that a small package had been handed to a person, and as the siren in the distance grew louder, officers rushed the scene, their badges gleaming as they yelled orders. The hooded man fled into the night, leaving Jim Jones with no choice but to raise his hands and gaze directly into. The Cam'ron remained motionless, almost daring the world to judge him. In a matter of seconds, the internet did what it always does, and social media platforms were ablaze with heated debates, reaction films, and reposts. Is this someone tweeting? Another member on Reddit's hip-hop blog Spun Theories wrote, did they frame him? Was this rival Croz's power play a plot by the FI, or had? The guy everyone most wanted to hear from was Cam'ron, Jim Jones' longtime friend and colleague, but Cam'ron remained silent for hours, which only made the situation worse. Jim Jones had reverted to his old ways, and the rumors were unrelenting and unending. Fans and detractors alike demanded a comment from Cam'ron late that night, and when he went live on his private social account, hundreds of people tuned in almost immediately. Was he ashamed, complicit, or truly in the dark? Bright background with no exciting beat, just Cam'ron sitting by alone in a dark room with a poem in his hand, pacing unreasonably. And the only sound a reminder of the mayhem that had just occurred was the distant sirens resonating throughout the city. "You don't know the half," Cam'ron remarked in a quiet voice, breaking the ice as heavy remarks poured in. People begged him to say more to defend his brother to provide context, he said. However, rumors started to circulate about what Cam'ron meant as he just stared at the camera, his eyes displaying a mixture of disappointment, rage, and a deeper sense of betrayal. Some insiders suggested that Cam'ron had attempted to warn Jim Jones months prior, while others asserted that Cam had proof of a more extensive conspiracy. One thing was certain, though. While local reporters waited for a statement from detectives outside the precinct, viewers were waiting for every word in a storm of speculation. By morning, it was reported that Jim Jones was charged with distribution and intent to distribute an unidentified controlled substance, according to investigators. Had allegedly mapped out a network that stretched from New York to Atlanta using surveillance footage, phone records, and undercover informants who had been keeping tabs on him for weeks. The substances involved were reportedly expensive designer pills rather than the usual street drugs, and rumors in law enforcement circles suggested that these pills could earn thousands of dollars per dose, forcing Jim Jones to deal with some people's disparaging tags, while others left flowers and handwritten letters begging for his freedom. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes pointing skyward as people stopped to record the chaos on their phones, adding further. An anonymous poster on a well-known forum claimed to have inside knowledge that Jim Jones had been in serious problems for months. The post stated, "Tour deals kept falling through new music sales, tanked, he got desperate, that's when he started moving favors." More footage to the ever-increasing mound of content back online. People assumed that the phrase moving favors was code for arranging deals in which illicit drugs were exchanged for cash, and images from years before appeared, demonstrating. Jim Jones attended private gatherings with people who are now known to law enforcement. Every photo was examined in detail, and then a leaked text discussion between Jim and an unidentified contact surfaced. It was a brief but telling interaction. "Did you deliver the contact?" Jim Jones said, "Just stay." That one text sent shockwaves through internet groups, with conspiracy theorists claiming the government was targeting well-known rappers and framing them to reveal something clandestine that had been simmering for a while. As an illustration, skeptics cited the text as proof of misconduct, and the distinction between fact and fiction became hazy as soon as the video went viral. Another Dipset affiliate, Jules Santana, increased the intrigue by sharing an old picture of himself with Jim Jones and Cameron with the caption, "Loyalty cuts." Deep. The ambiguity only served to fuel the flames as fans argued about whether it was a gesture of solidarity or a covert blow at Jim Jones' alleged treachery, using hashtags like. A local nightclub hosted a vigil for Jim amid the digital pandemonium, with hashtag TeamJules and hashtag WhereCam trending across platforms. The scene was a mix of memorial and celebration, with guests gathered under flashing neon lights, some wearing Dipset t-shirts and others wearing sweatshirts with Jim Jones' face printed on them. Protest, a muralist painted a picture of Jim Jones in prison with the words "Free my brother" scrolling in large letters underneath. At the same time, supporters combed through Jim's most recent lyrics to find hints or statements that once sounded. Every verse became material for analysis as vloggers and podcasters argued over the chronology of events, speculating on when the alleged deals might have taken place. On the legal front, sources close to the investigation suggested a new meaning for the phrase innocent. "I've been moving through shadows now." Prosecutors were allegedly developing a case that went beyond Jim Jones, potentially identifying co-conspirators and disclosing a multi-state operation. Rumor had it that subpoenas had been sent to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta cast members and other reality programs looking for. The mystery was further complicated by the disclosure of Atlanta ties in financial records and correspondence. Could Jim Jones' arrest be a part of a bigger network crackdown? Cameron Voice remained the wild card throughout it all, and after his first live, he vanished. A few hours later, he shared a mysterious picture of 2 broken chains on his story with no explanation, leaving fans to worry if he was bargaining behind the scenes or if his quiet indicated a rupture between him and Jim Jones. Went into overdrive. Was he suggesting a vacation from the gym or a sign of freedom in the future? According to insider information, Rashida, a longtime acquaintance and neighbor, had confronted Jim Jones just hours before his arrest. "I pleaded with him to drop that life," said that when contacted, Rashida's representatives said it was worth the risk. The carefully worded statement expressed worry and cautioned fans not to draw hasty conclusions. But it did nothing to stop suspicions when night descended over Harlem once more and a second video leaked from it. The camera zoomed upward to reveal a familiar man leaning against the wall, Cam'ron, with his face partially in shadow. This unidentified account was taken inside the warehouse and showed Jim Jones calculating currency stacks on a metal table before putting something in a pocket. Backlit by a flickering bow, Jim Jones looked at him and nodded as though he was asking for his approval. Cam'ron then moved forward, said something that could not be heard, and left. Jim Jones went back to packing, but the video cut out the revelation, leaving shockwaves outside of Harlem if Cam'ron had actually been there, even under the pretense of. As the online fury reached a fever pitch, every hip-hop journalist, fan page, and commentator rushed to analyze the video, and that's where part 1 ends. Friendship questions surfaced regarding his involvement. Was he more than a passive observer? Was he complicit? Was he the one who set Jim Jones up? Under the flickering ball and the astonished stillness that followed the second video's release, the full extent of the scandal was just starting to emerge, and this was no longer simply Jim Jones' story. It was Cam'ron's story as well. By this point, the unofficial running total of leaks, rumors, and whispers had surpassed any official announcement, and the impact of the video had spread across the hip-hop community. Detectives in plainclothes were coming up at Jim Jones' mother's brownstone to question paparazzi. The streets of Harlem, which were already tense, felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow up inside Jim Jones' circle. And his manager, Tony 50/50 Martinez, was pacing the backstage area as they staked out Cam'ron home in the hopes of a reaction. When Martinez's phone began buzzing nonstop, with calls from lawyers, promoters, and anxious cast members outside the little club, where Jim Jones was supposed to perform later that evening, he eventually answered one voice firmly. "Yes, I know we need a statement, but he's not talking yet. I've told everyone to stand down," he said. He got up and sank into a chair, head in his hands, asking Isla Jim Jones' longtime hairdresser, who was waiting anxiously, what the hell he got himself into this time. She ran a hand through her braids, and he said he was clean, and that he was done with that life. With the video showing Cam present as well, Martinez glanced up, eyes bloodshot. Although there are no paper trails or official indictments yet, this is greater than we initially believed. Meanwhile, Cam'ron Ohnkamp frantically tried to control the narrative. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, a small group of assistants and publicists gathered in a small office above a record store. One of them, Jasmine, opened the most recent social media statistics on her laptop. His previous live received 2 million views in 50 minutes, and the comments were crazy. Antonio, a more experienced publicist, leaned over and said, "We can't just spin it people saw him there. We need context." Snitching? Did he set him up? Where's his loyalty? She asked, her eyes widening. If we don't get ahead of this, Cam's career is toast. We need a statement from Jim Jones, and more crucially, from Cam himself to provide verification of his whereabouts before and after. However, Cam was nowhere to be located. His phone went straight to voicemail, and his social media accounts were silent. Rumor had it that he checked himself into a private retreat upstate, a so-called. According to an unidentified officer in the narcotics section, the FI had been tracking a ring that leveraged celebrity, and insiders suspected that he was either sitting low to gather the data or possibly doubting his own role on the side of law enforcement. Sources verified an enlarged probe. Jim Jones' name only came to light when undercover agents recorded him during several interactions in New York and Atlanta. Traffic designer pills, known on the street as nightmares, were moved covertly using encrypted messaging apps and took advantage of industry events for distribution. The package close to the warehouse was only the first step. Cops discovered security tape showing him entering a hotel suite in Atlanta at precisely 2:17 a.m. with two men who were later jailed on drug-related charges. The chief agent informed reporters that this is not a celebrity witch hunt and that there are strong indications of higher-level involvement. Back in Harlem, Rashida was startled awake by a late-night call from her cousin Channel, who worked in. Radio commercials are requesting your opinion on every channel, asking what you saw. Rashida massaged her eyes and said, "I'm not ready. Jim Jones is like a brother to me, and Pam is like family. I can't just out them like that." People have already responded to the second video on the channel, and they're saying that he knew about it and that you're hiding it from him. Rashida slammed the phone down, her heart racing, and she turned on the morning news to see the headlines about the Dipset drama of Cam'ron. Following the rapper's arrest, royalty was questioned on air as a banner displayed the arrest shot of Jim Jones in handcuffs and frowning, beside a grandmother still of Cam leaning in and talking to Jim Jones. Having to choose between devotion and self-preservation, Rashida disputed. Her next course of action was to either remain silent and run the chance of being complicit or speak up and run the risk of offending two of her closest friends. She contacted men for advice, and his tone was cool and collected. Rashida listened, and he spoke in a steady voice, but Rashida sensed. The stress is greater than all of us. We must protect the family while also respecting the truth. If Cam is in that video, he should provide an explanation. What do I do every time Reddit conspiracy theorists piece together timelines from hotel schedules and concert dates? Dates of check-ins and interviews. According to one popular thread, Jim Jones and Cam had used industry showcases as a pretext for meetings with the trafficking ring. Another user at Streeteen stated that a mysterious line in a recent Jim Jones song, "I move silently through the night," was an admission of guilt. Wrote, Cam would defend Jim Jones if his loyalty was genuine. His silence says a lot. He's not going to put his brother under the bus while he waits for the truth within one of his. Dave Swift was preparing his morning show in the city's most exclusive studios. He had arranged audio clips of Jim Jones' arrest announcement, Cam's "You Won't Know the Half Live," Rashida's somber statement, and a few highlights from police press conferences. He intended to pit them against one another and ask callers to pick a side. All I know is that he told his engineer that the ratings would determine the outcome. Will explode from the internet to the halls of justice. Part 2 concludes with Rashida getting ready to take center stage with her own version of events, weighing the importance of her reputation, family friendship, and family against the press's ravenous scrutiny. What she says next could completely alter the course of events once more. Onto the makeshift platform outside the precinct, rubbing her forehead with shaking fingers before turning to face the worried faces and flashing bulbs. As a group of reporters fought for position, microphones were thrust forward like ravenous animals, and she cleared her throat. Voice faltering when asked if I knew about any of this, I replied that I didn't until I witnessed it firsthand. Jim Jones told me he was working on new music, and I trusted him like family. As the crowd echoed, a cameraman asked, "Are you filling in for him?" I'm hiding the truth, and if he's guilty, I'll be the first to say so later that day inside a small conference room at Dipset, Rashida said, her eyes flickering with sorrow. The two leaked films, the Atlanta hotel suite footage, the security camera footage, and printouts of the incriminating text, were among the evidence packets that Record's attorneys and advisors were huddled over. Jim Jones' primary attorney, Marissa Flores, was leaning across the table. The investigator scratched her temples and added, "If we can show Jim Jones was elsewhere at key times, that footage may be circumstantial. We need to make holes in the prosecution's timeline." The crew nodded, but there was a lot of stress as they looked at the phone alerts that said, "They'll try to split the cases at land a deal separate from the warehouse meet. We need to prove these points are connected." "We're battling a public spectacle," and one colleague scoffed. "The internet serves as the jury pool." By evening, Cameron had reappeared and posted a short audio clip on his verified account. "I've always supported my family, and I'm gathering information. Please be patient." It only lasted 30 seconds, but it generated a new round of discussion. Fans divided into two groups, with some viewing Cam's silence as a sign of solidarity and others as complicity. Hashtags alternated between #CamForClarity, and men remained at home scrolling through the craze while #CamForJones. He called Rashida, who responded in a voice weary of them tearing me apart. She said, "I'm trying to stand for the truth, but they won't let me exhale lightly." Dipset's brand manager set up a meeting with Jim Jones' main supporters, longtime fans, street influencers, and local community leaders as part of damage control. "You did what you had to do, baby. Now let the lawyers handle the rest. Keep your head up." He paused, but watch your back. The event was hosted in a former church that was converted into an event venue on 125th Street. Above a small stage, posters of Dipset Records were displayed, and there was a single chair for Jim Jones, but nobody was certain if he would show up. Volunteers distributed bottled water, and flyers with the words, "If you believe in redemption," bolded on them. Following an hour of intense debate, a respected community elder served as the guest speaker. "We all know that mistakes happen, but we also know that atonement exists, so let's." Applause came out as people rallied around someone who had previously lifted this city, yet there was still a lingering sense of cynicism. A clever local blogger muttered into a live stream microphone, "Applause doesn't pay legal fees elsewhere." Another tabloid source asserted that 2 nights prior to the arrest, viewers had seen Cameron in surveillance footage inside the warehouse. In response, Cameron publicist released a statement stating that he completely cooperated with law police and that any suggestion to the contrary is untrue. He cherishes justice and will respond to these falsehoods in due time, even though online rumors only intensified as prank accounts shared mashups of Cameron as a detective in trench coats, mimicking every mistake. Amid the public commotion, Jim Jones' family gathered in a small. Jim Jones' mother, with her nose flaring, said they treat him like a criminal, as his mother, aunt, and 2 younger sisters gathered around a laptop broadcasting live coverage from his uptown apartment. With tears in her eyes, one sister murmured, "I don't even want to watch anymore," while his aunt sniffled, "He's always been troubled. I worry." In the meantime, back in the courtroom complex, prosecutors prepared their opening statements for the preliminary hearing. Special Agent Robert Hillcruz reviewed his case file. "We have sworn testimony from the hooded man who fled that night, who identified himself as Jim Jones." They turned off the stream and sat in silence, feeling the weight of the scandal crushing their home. His colleague added, "We'll push for a quick indictment, send a message that celebrities aren't above the law. We have the text exchanges and phone records that link him to the Atlanta suspects." Outside protesters gathered, some chanting justice for Jim Jones, others shouting accountability. Now a group of local activists held signs reading, "Stop criminalizing achievement." Tension was seething as police and riot gear observed from a distance. It was a chaotic situation with different factions trying to dominate. A teenage blogger called Tasha Lee made her way through the, "Do you think Jim Jones is guilty?" she asked a random attendee while crowd filming for her channel. "I don't know, but everyone's trying to use this." She stopped. Tasha nodded, turning the discussion into a criticism of social media sensationalism that evening. Jim Jones said, "No one is talking about the real issue, which is the pills hurting our youth, regardless of who sold them." Wearing a simple black tee and jeans, he made his first public appearance since the arrest on a low-rise stage at a community outreach event. He looked worn out, and the audience fell silent. He raised a hand to say, "Thank you for being here, everyone. I won't lie to you." A teenage admirer shouted, "We got you, Uncle Jim Jones," and a murmur of support echoed through the audience. This is hell, but I'm not here to plead innocence or guilt. I'm here to tell you I love you, and I'm fighting." After the event, Jim Jones faced reporters. He took a long breath before responding, "Yes, I was at that warehouse. Yes, I met that man. But what you don't know is why I'll explain," to the cheers of those backstage. Jim Jones' jaw tensed as a reporter inquired about the purported designer medicines, saying, "They paint me with names I'm innocent until then." As midnight drew near, the scandal showed no signs of abating. A third video clip was leaked, this time a voice message purportedly from Jim Jones to Cam that was recorded days before to the meeting. The audio was muffled, but the words were. The video ended abruptly, leaving viewers to ponder if this was evidence of a conspiracy or just another artificial distraction in the digital world. An underground podcast hosted by XV agents examined every possibility and speculated on conspiracy theories ranging from connections to foreign cardos to inside jobs by rival music execs were discussed by calls, wiretap informants, and the potential for a plea bargain. Each new rumor produced a new tempest, and through it, all two identities. The alliance between Jim Jones and Cam'ron, which had once been hailed as hip-hop royalty, was now in jeopardy. Part 2 had revealed betrayals and shifting allegiances, and Part 3 blurred the boundaries between right and wrong. The courtroom was tense as the preliminary hearing began the following morning, with rows of chairs packed with spectators, journalists, and interested bystanders. Jim Jones sat at the defense table with his attorney's eyes cast on him as the battle for loyalty and truth intensified, and the world waited with bated breath for the next shocking twist. In the surveillance operation that resulted in Jim Jones' arrest after weeks of wiretapping, the prosecution put out the allegations of distribution and intent to distribute a controlled narcotic over state borders with the help and involvement of an accomplice known only as Tablack. He mentioned the shaky warehouse film, the Atlanta hotel clip, and the leaked text conversations. His voice was firm, but every detail caused the gallery to scream. He ended by mentioning TAFs, undercover buys, and nightly stakeouts, declaring that the data shows a pattern of transactions that point to a wider distribution network. When Cruz sat down, the audience was filled with murmurs. Jim Jones' attorney Flores then got up to start her response, speaking calmly and measuredly while acknowledging parts of the evidence but doubting its applicability.